My boyfriend's mother offered me $50,000 to disappear from his life. She called me a charity case and said I was a stain on their family's pristine legacy. So instead of taking the money, I decided to burn her perfect world to the ground. And the beautiful, terrible part? She handed me the match herself when she didn't know I was listening. I met Leo in a quirky, independent coffee shop called The Daily Grind, a universe away from the corporate chains. I was nursing a single espresso, trying to make it last through my pile of sales brochures. He smelt like some expensive, spicy cologne I later learned was Creed Aventus, and his watch wasn't gold, but a sleek, impossibly thin Patek Philippe. He was effortlessly put together, a stark contrast to my thrift store blazer and the constant, low-grade panic of making rent. I expected him to look straight through me. Instead, he asked if the chair at my table was free. We talked for an hour. He didn't just make me give a polite, forced laugh. He elicited a real, gut-deep chuckle that startled me with its sincerity. I braced for the moment he'd lose interest, the inevitable coolness that would follow when I revealed my past. But when I told him I grew up in the homeless encampments by the riverbanks and that my highest education was a GED, his eyes didn't glaze over. He said, "You built your own ladder," his voice full of genuine awe. That's the most impressive thing I've ever heard. In that moment, my defenses crumbled. I was terrifyingly, completely his. Leo's world was a gilded cage of luxury I couldn't have imagined. His family, the Vances, owned a multinational conglomerate, Vance Consolidated. Their parties were held in penthouses with views that stretched forever. I listened to conversations where people genuinely debated the merits of sending their children to boarding schools in Switzerland versus ones in the English countryside. They talked about summer homes in the Hamptons like most people talk about a weekend getaway. I stayed silent, a ghost at the feast, until one night at a dinner party at the Vance family estate. Leo's mother, Eleanor, a woman with a smile as cold as diamond, was holding court. "The problem with this country," she declared, sipping her vintage Bordeaux, "is the perpetuation of dependency. If you can't afford private education, you simply shouldn't have children. It's irresponsible to burden the system." A few heads nodded in agreement. My blood ran cold. I thought of the community center that had been my only sanctuary, the overworked teachers who'd given me books. I took a breath. But isn't the system supposed to help people get back on their feet? Shouldn't a society be judged by how it treats its most vulnerable? The clinking of silverware stopped. The room went silent. Leo looked at me, his eyes wide with a mixture of shock and something else, worry. I quickly tried to backtrack, my face burning. I mean, of course, those who receive help should be grateful. The approving murmur that followed made me feel sick. I excused myself to the bathroom, my heart hammering. I was locking the stall door when I heard Eleanor and Cassandra walk in. "Did you hear what Leo's little project said?" "Don't even start." Eleanor's voice was like ice. "He told us she was from the riverbanks, but I didn't realize she was a philosopher of the poor too. She's just a temporary distraction, a poverty project. He'll see it soon enough." I sat there, frozen, the words "poverty project" carving a hole in my chest. The humiliation was a physical pain. I waited until they left, then called a rideshare and fled without a word to Leo. I didn't break up with him, though. Instead, a cold, hard resolve settled in my gut. I was going to get closer. I was going to learn all their secrets. I never told Leo what I heard. Instead, I became a model girlfriend. I attended every stuffy gallery opening and charity auctions, smiling and nodding. I spent evenings with Eleanor and her circle, listening to their gossip over glasses of Pinot Grigio and whiskey sours. I became a confidant, or so they thought. They believed they could say anything in front of me, their little charity case who was just so grateful to be included. I was hunting, though I wasn't sure for what. I just knew I'd recognize it when I saw it. The breakthrough came on a Tuesday. I was alone with Eleanor in her pristine, all-white living room. She was on her third glass of wine, her perfect composure beginning to crack as she complained about Cassandra. "That girl is a blight on the Vance name," she slurred quietly, more to herself than to me. "Sometimes I need one of my little helpers just to stomach the fact she shares my DNA." She immediately clapped a hand over her mouth, her eyes wide with faux regret. "Oh, goodness, I didn't mean that." I gave her my most understanding smile. "Don't worry, Eleanor. Your secret is safe with me." But it wasn't. The next time I visited, I slipped into her private ensuite bathroom. In the mirrored cabinet, between La Mer creams and other unguents, was a prescription bottle of anti-anxiety medication, Klonopin. My heart thumped against my ribs. This was it. I carefully emptied the capsules, replacing them with identical-looking fiber supplements. I didn't know what would happen, but I was ready for the show. The reveal happened at Cassandra's birthday dinner at a Michelin-starred restaurant. I had almost forgotten my act of sabotage until the main course was served. Everything was civilized, until Cassandra accidentally clinked her fork too loudly against her plate. Eleanor flinched as if struck. "For God's sake, Cassandra," she snapped, her voice suddenly shrill and cutting through the polite conversation. "Must you eat like a starved farm animal? Have some dignity." The entire table fell silent, stunned. Cassandra's face crumpled. Leo stared at his mother in disbelief. I simply took a sip of water, a faint, knowing smirk on my lips. I had won, or so I thought. The victory was short-lived. The next day, Leo called me, his voice tight. "We need to talk. Can you come over?" When I arrived at his apartment, his face was a storm cloud. "My mom showed me something disturbing," he said, not meeting my eyes. He pulled up his phone, opening a private family security app. There, clear as day, was a video of me entering and exiting Eleanor's private bathroom. "What were you doing in there?" he demanded, his voice low and hurt. "She's claiming you tampered with her medication. Is that true?" The floor felt like it was falling away. How could I explain? "Leo, she called me a poverty project. She said you dumped me." I tried to explain the bathroom conversation, the months of humiliation. "You switched her pills? Do you have any idea how dangerous that is?" he yelled, pacing. "What is wrong with you?" I couldn't breathe. I grabbed my purse and ran, his words echoing in my ears. I spent the next 3 days in my apartment, a prisoner of my own shame, ignoring his calls and texts. I was sure it was over. But on the 4th day, the knock on my door wasn't from Leo. It was Cassandra. I almost slammed the door, but Cassandra wedged her designer shoe in the frame. "Please," she said, her voice surprisingly earnest. "Can we talk?" Reluctantly, I let her in. She looked out of place perched on my IKEA sofa, her Chanel handbag resting on a cushion that cost less than its stitching. "So," she began, "my mom told everyone what you did." She paused, letting the weight of that statement hang in the air. "And I don't think you were wrong." I was stunned into silence. Cassandra explained that Eleanor had been emotionally abusive to her for years. The blight on the Vance name comment was a regular refrain. She'd been called stupid, ungrateful, a failure for not conforming to Eleanor's impossible standards. When she had that meltdown at dinner, she said, her voice trembling slightly, it was the first time anyone, especially Leo, saw a fraction of what I live with. What you did was insane, don't get me wrong, but you exposed her, and I want to help you get back at her, properly. My initial suspicion was a thick wall. This had to be a trap. But the raw pain in her eyes was real. Leo had texted me that morning, "We need to talk," the universal code for an impending breakup. I had nothing left to lose. "What's the plan?" I asked. Her eyes lit up with a fiery determination. "The Vance Foundation's annual fundraising gala is next weekend. It's the biggest event of the season. Every influential person in the city will be there. I want you to come as my +1. My stomach churned. "In front of everyone, and Leo will be there?" "That's the point," she said firmly. "He needs to see who she really is, too. He's always been her golden boy, shielded from her nastiness. We're going to rip the mask off in public." It was a terrifying, brilliant plan. The ultimate humiliation for a woman who lived for her public image. We spent the next few days plotting. Cassandra took me shopping, helping me find a simple but elegant navy blue gown from a designer I'd never heard of. "It's not about looking like one of them," she advised. "It's about looking like you belong there on your own terms." The night of the gala, I felt a nervous energy coursing through me. At Cassandra's apartment, she did my hair and makeup, transforming my anxiety into a mask of cool composure. We arrived at the grand ballroom of the Orion Hotel, a space dripping with crystal and wealth. I spotted Leo immediately, standing with Eleanor. He looked heartbreakingly handsome in his tuxedo. Eleanor was in emerald green, holding a flute of champagne, her laugh a tinkling, fake sound. "Ready?" Cassandra whispered, her arm linked with mine. I took a deep breath. "Ready." We made our entrance. I watched as Eleanor's practiced social smile evaporated, replaced by pure, unadulterated horror when her eyes landed on me. Leo's jaw was slack. But beneath his shock, I saw it, a flicker of something that wasn't anger. It was confusion, maybe even a shred of hope. The confrontation was a slow, simmering burn. Cassandra guided me through the crowd, introducing me to family friends and business partners as her dear friend. I smiled, shook hands, and made polite small talk, all while feeling the heat of Eleanor's glare drilling into my back. I was a ghost who had learned how to wear solid form, and it was unraveling her. My moment came at the edge of the dance floor. Eleanor approached, two of her hawk-like friends in tow, her emerald gown seeming to darken with her mood. "Cassandra, darling," she cooed, ignoring my existence. "I didn't realize you were bringing a guest." Her voice was saccharine poison. "Mom, you remember Leo's girlfriend?" Cassandra said, her tone deliberately light. Eleanor's eyes finally sliced toward me. "I believe the term is ex-girlfriend. After that little stunt with my prescription." Nearby conversations hushed. I felt my cheeks flush, but Cassandra's subtle nudge against my arm was our signal. "Stay calm." "Actually, Eleanor," I said, my voice steady and clear, cutting through the tension, "I wanted to apologize for that. It was reckless and wrong." A flicker of triumphant surprise crossed her face. She wasn't expecting capitulation. I continued before she could speak. "I was just so hurt after I heard you call me a poverty project in the bathroom that day. It's hard to shake off words like that." A collective sharp gasp came from her two friends. One of them, a woman with lips stiffed with filler, whispered loudly, "She did not just say that." Eleanor's face went from smug to panicked in a heartbeat. "I never said any such thing. Cassandra, are you going to allow this stranger to spread vile lies at my event?" Cassandra shrugged, a picture of nonchalance. "I don't know, Mother. You've certainly said worse about me." Just then, Leo broke through the circle of onlookers. "What's going on?" he asked, his eyes darting between us all, seeking an anchor in the storm. "Leo, thank goodness," she simpered, grabbing his arm. "Please escort your ex-girlfriend out. She's causing a scene with these outrageous fabrications." "Outrageous?" I repeated softly. I pulled out my phone, my fingers steady despite my pounding heart. I tapped my screen, and the clear, unmistakable sound of Eleanor's voice filled the space between us. "He told us she was from the riverbanks, but I didn't realize she was also a philosopher of the poor. She's just a temporary distraction, a poverty project. He'll see it soon enough." I had recorded it that day in the stall, a desperate, instinctual act of self-preservation. The look on Eleanor's face was a masterpiece of shattered composure. "You recorded me in a private bathroom? That's illegal." "Single-party consent state, Mother." She was a party to the conversation. Leo looked like he'd been physically winded. He stared at his mother, the truth finally, undeniably laid bare. His friends were already subtly backing away, their expressions a mix of shock and secondhand embarrassment. Eleanor stood utterly exposed. Leo turned to me, his expression a complex map of hurt, understanding, and regret. "Can we talk privately?" he asked, his voice low. I nodded, and we stepped away, leaving Eleanor standing alone in the wreckage of her perfect evening. Leo led me to a quiet alcove, away from the staring eyes. The sounds of the gala became a distant hum. "I had no idea," he began, running a hand through his perfectly styled hair, messing it. "I mean, I knew she could be difficult, but I never thought poverty project. My God, Chloe, I'm so sorry." The genuine pain in his voice disarmed me. "It's not your fault," I said, the automatic response. "But it is," he insisted, his gaze intense. "I brought you into that world. I was so proud to have you by my side, I was blind to the knives she was sharpening. And when she showed me that video," he shook his head, ashamed. "I should have asked why. I just got angry. I failed you." The weight on my chest began to lift, replaced by a fragile hope. "So you understand why I did it. Not the method, but the reason?" "I don't approve of swapping anyone's medication ever," he said firmly. "But yeah, Chloe, I get it. You were backed into a corner." He looked over at Cassandra, who gave him a small, supportive nod from across the room. "And you were defending my sister too, weren't you? She told me some things just now." Before I could respond, a wave of cold fury announced Eleanor's presence. She had recomposed herself, her face a mask of calm, but her eyes were twin pools of venom. "I'd like a word with my son's friend," she said, the word dripping with contempt. "Alone." Leo stepped between us. "Mom, no, this ends now." "It's fine, darling," she said, her smile brittle. "Just girl talk. We'll be right back." Her eyes locked with mine, challenging me. Against every screaming instinct, I nodded. "It's okay, Leo." I followed her to a small, soundproofed anteroom used for private meetings. The moment the door clicked shut, her composure vanished. "Listen to me, you little gutter snipe," she hissed, her voice low and vicious. "This ends now. You are not welcome in my family." I forced myself to stand tall. "That's not your decision to make. It's Leo's." She let out a cold, cruel laugh. "Oh, you naive child. He will always choose family. Always. You're a fascinating diversion, a thrilling little story of survival. But eventually, the novelty will wear off and he will remember where he belongs." Her words were designed to poison my hope. And for a moment, they did. She saw the flicker of doubt and pressed her advantage. I'll make you a deal. Walk away tonight, and I will wire $75,000 to any account you name, no questions, no strings. It's more money than you'll see in a decade. Just disappear. I was speechless. The sheer audacity was breathtaking. You're trying to buy me off again? I'm offering you a future, she corrected. Take it. The door opened before I could form a response. Cassandra stood there, her eyes narrowed. Everything okay in here? She asked, her gaze fixed on her mother. Uh-huh. Well, Leo's looking for you both. Dad's about to give his speech. As Eleanor swept past me, she leaned in close. Think about it, she whispered. It's the only good offer you'll ever get. Back in the ballroom, the atmosphere was electric. Robert Vance, Leo's father, was at the podium. He was a tall, silver-haired man with the same kind eyes as his son. He spoke about the foundation's work, but then he surprised everyone. And now, I'd like to hand the microphone over to the person who inspired our newest initiative, my son, Leo. My breath caught. Leo squeezed my hand before walking to the stage. Eleanor, standing near the front, beamed with pride, clearly expecting a polished, traditional speech. Thank you, Leo began, his voice confident. This foundation has always been about opportunity. But recently, I've been reminded that opportunity isn't just about writing a check. It's about understanding the real, grinding struggles that most people in this room will never have to face. Eleanor's smile tightened. He looked directly at me. My girlfriend, Chloe, has taught me more about resilience and sheer will than anyone I've ever known. She grew up with nothing, in circumstances we can't even fathom, and she built a life through her own two hands. No trust fund, no safety net, just grit. The room was silent. Eleanor's face was a frozen mask of fury. That's why tonight, Leo announced, the Vance Foundation is launching the First Rung Initiative. We're partnering with organizations that provide not just shelter, but comprehensive job training and mentorship for homeless youth, helping them build their own ladders, just like Chloe did. Polite applause rippled through the crowd. I saw Eleanor frantically whispering to Robert, who simply nodded, a faint smile on his lips. She looked utterly betrayed. Leo returned to my side. What did you think? I said, my heart swelling. But your mom looks like she's planning my assassination. He glanced over. Yeah, I might have forgotten to tell her. Dad approved it last week. This was a power play I hadn't anticipated. Leo had just outmaneuvered his mother on her own turf. Eleanor descended on us, her smile so strained it looked painful. Leo, darling, what a surprise. Such a major announcement should really be discussed with the board. Already done, Mom. Dad approved it. Robert joined us, clapping Leo on the back. A wonderful speech, son. Bold and necessary. He then turned to me with a warm, genuine smile that was nothing like his wife's. And you must be Chloe. I've heard so much about you. It's a pleasure to finally meet the inspiration. Eleanor looked like she'd been slapped. Robert, did you know about this? Of course, dear. It's a brilliant direction for us. He was firmly on our side. Madison sidled up, champagne in hand. Great speech, bro. Mom, you look tense. Maybe you should take one of your supplements. I coughed to cover a laugh. Eleanor glared at her daughter. I'm perfectly fine, she said through gritted teeth, before stiffly walking away. Robert sighed, watching her go. Don't mind her, Chloe. She's, set in her ways. He looked at me with sincere appreciation. You are welcome here. For the first time all night, I truly believed it. The feeling of victory was sweet, but it was about to be short-lived. The feeling of triumph lasted exactly until the next morning. I woke up in Leo's penthouse to my phone vibrating incessantly on the nightstand. Blearily-eyed, I checked the screen. Dozens of notifications from LinkedIn, Instagram, and a gossip blog I'd never heard of. The Metro Mirror. My blood ran cold. The headline screamed, Vance Ayre's new flame? A convicted shoplifter from the streets? Someone, Eleanor, had anonymously sent my sealed juvenile record to the press. The article painted me as a habitual criminal, focusing on a few minor shoplifting charges from when I was a 15-year-old kid trying to survive, stealing toothpaste and sometimes bread. All charges had been expunged when I turned 18, but there it was, laid bare for all of Leo's world to see. The article's tagline was the real dagger, from street thief to social climber. Leo stirred beside me. Morning, he murmured, his voice heavy with sleep. What's all the noise? Wordlessly, I handed him the phone. I watched his face transform from confusion to dark, stormy anger as he read. He didn't even need to ask. My mother, he stated, his voice flat and cold. It has to be, I whispered, my voice trembling. This was worse than I imagined. My career in sales relied on trust and reputation. This could annihilate everything I'd built. William pulled me into a fierce hug. I'm so sorry. I'll handle this. While I sat frozen at the kitchen island, he sprang into action. First, a call to his lawyer, demanding cease and desist letters. Second, a heated call to his father, Robert, whose raised voice I could hear even from a distance. The third call was to Cassandra. Mom did what? Cassandra's exclamation echoed through the speaker. That's a new low even for her. After he hung up, Leo explained. Cassandra is going to confront her. She thinks she can get her to admit it. I doubt she was that careless, I said, my hope fading. This was exactly what Eleanor wanted, to prove I was a source of scandal. Maybe we should take a break, I suggested, the words tasting like ash. Just until this blows over. Leo looked horrified. Is that what you want? No, I admitted, but I don't want to ruin your family's name. He took my face in his hands. That is exactly what she wants. I'm not letting her win. As if on cue, his phone buzzed. Cassandra, Leo put it on speaker. You're not going to believe this, she said, her voice buzzing with victory. I found the receipts. Mom hired a private investigator, Blackwood & Co. She paid him $10,000 to dig up anything he could on you. He's the one who unsealed the records. My jaw dropped. How did you find that? Cassandra said. I have access to her encrypted cloud drive. It's how I've survived in this family. Sent everything to you, Leo. Leo's expression turned to one of grim determination. This ends now. He called his father back. Dad, we're coming over. We have proof. An hour later, we were in the Vance Mansion's library. It felt like a tribunal. Robert and Leo on one leather sofa, Cassandra and I on another. Eleanor sat alone in a high-backed chair, a queen dethroned but not yet defeated. This is absurd, she declared after Leo laid out the evidence. I did no such thing. Cassandra pulled out her tablet. Really, Mom? Because here's the email chain with Blackwood Investigations, and here's the wire transfer confirmation from your private account. Eleanor's face went pale, but she rallied. I was performing due diligence. Any mother would want to know who her son is involved with. By illegally obtaining sealed juvenile records, Robert's voice was dangerously quiet, and leaking them to the press, that's not due diligence, Eleanor. That is potentially criminal. She scoffed, regaining her icy composure. Oh, please. It's hardly criminal to protect our family from an obvious social climber. I'd had enough. I have never asked Leo for a single thing. I have my own job, my own life. The only person obsessed with your money is you. The room fell silent. Eleanor stared at me with pure, undiluted hatred. How dare you speak to me that way in my own home? Our home, Robert corrected firmly. And she's right, Eleanor. This vendetta ends. Now. Eleanor looked to her son for support, but Leo just shook his head in disgust. You tried to bribe her, and when that didn't work, you tried to publicly destroy her. What did you think would happen? That I'd thank you? I was protecting you, she insisted, her voice rising. Give it up, Mom, Cassandra said, rolling her eyes. You lost. Eleanor stood abruptly, her dignity in tatters. I will not be spoken to like this. She shot me a final venomous look. This isn't over. She stormed out, leaving a heavy silence in her wake. Robert sighed, the weight of the years on his shoulders. Chloe, I apologize. You are welcome here. He looked at his children, then back at me, regardless of what Eleanor says. The battle was won, but the war, it seemed, was still raging. True to her word, Eleanor's war was not over. The next salvo came via my boss, Mark. His call was brief and strained. Chloe, we've had concerns raised about your background. I'm moving you to a back office data entry role, effective immediately. No client contact. I was gutted. My sales career, my hard-won independence, was being systematically dismantled. Leo immediately offered to cover my salary, but I refused. That's her whole plan, Leo, to make me dependent on you. He understood, but the victory from the library felt hollow. The constant attacks were taking their toll. A week later, Cassandra sent an SOS text. Mom's hosting a family dinner. She's invited all of Leo's ex-girlfriends, including Isabel, the one she always wanted for him. It's an ambush. You have to come. My instinct was to hide, but I was done hiding. We're going, I told Leo. The dinner was a spectacle of old money opulence. Eleanor, in a sharp crimson dress, greeted us with a predatory smile. Leo, so glad you could make it. And you brought her. She completely ignored my greeting. The ambush arrived in the form of Isabel, a stunning brunette with the calm authority of old lineage. Leo, she said, air-kissing his cheek, you look well. Then she turned to me with a polite, unreadable smile. Hello. But as Eleanor began her campaign, a funny thing happened. Isabel seemed uncomfortable. Later, while Eleanor was distracted, Isabel leaned in. Just so we're clear, I'm here under duress. I'm happily married. My wife is a sculptor from a working-class family in Ohio. Eleanor would have an aneurysm if she knew. Good luck. The real confrontation erupted during dessert. Eleanor stood, raising her glass for a toast. To family, she declared, her eyes sweeping over her guests before landing on me, and to knowing where one belongs. That was it, the last straw. Eleanor, can I ask you a question? What are you so afraid of? That I'll tarnish your family's shiny reputation? or that I'm proof that your money isn't what makes a person valuable." The room froze. Robert put a hand on her arm, but she shook him off, her face a mask of fury. "I am trying to protect my son from a gold digger, from a woman who has never asked him for a single thing, from someone who built herself up from nothing? What does that say about the values you actually hold versus the ones you perform at galas?" It was Leo who stood up then, his voice firm and final. "Enough, mother. You're not protecting me. You're poisoning everything. I choose Chloe, not your approval, not this version of our family. Her. If you cannot accept that, then you are choosing to lose a son." The silence in the room was absolute. Eleanor looked from Leo's resolute face to Robert's disappointed one to Cassandra's smug satisfaction. She saw no allies. Without another word, she dropped her napkin on the table and walked out. A month later, Leo and I moved into a new apartment together, a fresh start that was wholly ours. Eleanor didn't speak to us for almost a year. The truce that eventually formed was cold and fragile, built on her understanding that she had lost. She sends a birthday card, she comes to Christmas, but the venom is gone, replaced with a distant, weary acceptance. The real victory wasn't just peace with Eleanor. 6 months after the scandal, my company, having seen my performance and the truth behind the gossip, promoted me to senior sales manager. I earned it on my own. Sometimes I think back to that first dinner, to Eleanor's cruel words about who deserves to exist. I think about the girl from the riverbanks and the woman she became, not in spite of her past, but because of it. And I look at Leo, the man who chose to see me and not just my history. Our story is a testament to a simple, powerful truth that money can't buy, that real wealth isn't in your bank account, but in the strength of your character and the people who stand beside you, no matter what.